Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Classic DM, and today we're going to talk about, we're starting a new mini-series. We're going to talk about setting up this table, which I call a battle glass, and making tokens and things like that. This is something I decided to do when I first got into doing the show because it's 40 years later. It's the 40th anniversary of the first edition. And so what I want to do today is give you a little inside peek into how I did all that stuff. And so you can do it with your own game as well. If you don't have an infinite budget for buying minis. Now I've gotten addicted to buying minis again, but let's get started here and take a look at what you can do. So let's just get this little tile screen out of the way. So here's our typical board, right? You've seen a lot of the episodes, maybe you watched some of them. And what we have here is, this is a piece of glass, right? This is a piece of glass, and you can see these little things right here. These are little clear cabinet bumpers, okay, that you can get at like Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever your hardware store. Those are American stores. The advantage of that means with a dry erase marker, such as a good one, you can do things like, okay, well, this is a torch, this torch is burning, and the smoke is going this way. Or you can say this Ogre Magi has a line of sight like this if you're a Warhammer style player. Or this Ogre Magi is over here, he can only see past this column here, he can see here, and he can see this way, so he can't actually see in here. And you can have conversations about the gameplay, and when you're doing the gameplay for someone else, like making a video, a lot of those additional details are really important, so it really makes it easy. This is the Ogre Magi K from the Glacial Rift of Frost Giant Jarl. And so when I first started, I didn't have any minis. I mean, I had tons of minis when I was a kid. I don't know where they are. They got lost or something. Or given away by mom. Who knows? I was like, well, gosh, how can we make this cool? Because I wanted to do the glass method. I knew I wanted to draw my own architectural freehand maps underneath these. And you've seen there's a whole series on how I draw them and stuff. But during the gameplay, we want to roll the dice on here, have these tokens, have people move by, see the of a 5-foot grid that's underneath here. The 1-inch grid is 5 feet. So let's go through step by step how we made all that stuff, because it's not that hard to do. It takes a little bit of effort, a little running around, a few little shops to go to and things like that. That's kind of a pain. But let's get these kids out of the way here, and let me just show you step by step all these things. So first thing we're going to do is talk about this glass. Now the maps you've seen before, right? Move the map out of the way, and I'm going to move the glass to here. This is the only thing I wish I could do differently here, is I wish this was tempered glass. It's not. It's just a very thin, crappy plate glass. I'm going to adjust the focus on this a little bit for you, so don't freak out. So you can see this right here. So this is like a cabinet stop on the back of a piece of glass, just glued. It's self-adhesive, sticks on here. And I've spaced those for relative, the architect in me, 14 inches on center. I spaced these things as close as I can. Now the other bad thing, if you look really closely here, I'm going to pull this really close like this, and I'm going to refocus it. Despite all the smudges, if you look really close right there, you can see there's clear tape wrapped over the edges like this. That's why I won't cut the shit out of my hand. That'd be a good way to execute yourself and kill yourself. So this glass, which was scored and then cut, didn't come with some kind of nice beveled edge. So this is very dangerous. So I don't recommend you hurt yourself. If you look real closely here, I got some crappy tape on there, and that's old school 1978. I've never seen it before. So I put tape over it to keep from cutting myself, because I'm constantly lifting this glass up and moving it. Lifting it up, sliding maps underneath it, and moving it, things like that. So the glass, where did I get it? So I got the glass at, like, I don't know, Lowe's or Home Depot. Broke it the first day. Now, how did I break it? And I'm not going to recreate how I broke it, but the glass is not structurally supported on the inside. And you can imagine, with the depth of the glass being the depth of one of these little cabinet stops, that means the glass is actually spanning from here to here. So what I try not to do is I try not to put my weight on the glass. I try instead to just let the marker and the characters and the minis, on the map. Say you were playing the game, you didn't have a cool architectural map. So you're like, okay, I'm going to draw. I'm drawing this, right? I'm going to draw this on here, but I'm only pushing down with the marker. This hand's not resting on this. So that's something you really got to be careful. It says, hey, here's a chord right here, and here's some kind of weird, altar thing. I don't know. Just draw something real quick for fun. Some hallway, some columns on it. You got your character in here, another character run down the hallway. Here's some torches. So you can draw on this and still have your grid going on, because the grid here, the little grid is underneath, so you can have things to scale for the game. So that's the part that's really great. We used to play with this method. It was a DM I used to play with way back years ago with Tallahassee, a bunch of old high school friends. And we were in college age in their mid-20s, named Joe Wisniewski. I can't know whatever happened to the fellow. He's a really nice guy. And he was at Florida State Graduate School, and he had a clear polyurethane map that was over a grid, and that's where this. So he gets credit for that way back in the 1989 or 92, maybe 92. I think 92. So let's get the glass out of the way and let's talk about this board that's underneath. It's gotten pretty beat up. I'll probably redo it, and you can actually see the shadows of me lifting this up with the light sources. So I'm gonna get the glass out of the way. Now, what I would recommend, if I could do it my own way, what would I do differently? Well, if you've ever seen a coffee table, you know that tempered glass is the way to go. If I could do whatever I wanted to do, if I could get whatever my hands on whatever I want to get my hands on, or if you know a way to do it, I'd have a half-inch thick, beveled, polished, clean piece of glass that's super heavy, and I'd still use little stoppers like that, and this would be the surface of the table itself. I still have that, but I then won't have to put tape on it, and then I can just put the little minis, standing on top of them or whatever, doing the little poses and stuff like that. So I would still do all that. And let's put a little sword of this dude's hand, right? A little crappy sketch of some dude. All right, so here's dude running around. So I would do it just like that. But I haven't been able to find anything like that. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this whole setup for $60 max. So what's the second thing I did? Well, when I was in architecture school, we used to do stuff on foam core all the time. Now these days, if you go to a grocery store or something, you're not going to find foam core as often or as easily as you would think. It's something that's usually an architectural student's going to have it. Now I'm going to pull this up a little closer here. I'm going to turn the light a little bit for you. So what we have here is failure to communicate. Oh, there you see that. This is a piece of foam core. I recommend getting it thicker, as thick as you can. Now what the foam core is, it's got paper. It's got a matte paper glued onto foam on both faces. Okay. Now here's an example. Here's a part where here's a part that got screwed up. Sorry about the bump of the mic. Here's a part that got screwed up one day. I pulled the tape off the back, and I was like, oh no, it got damaged, whatever. So it's really just like a piece of very, very fragile paper permanently glued to foam. Now, one thing you might want to notice, let's bring this focus back down. One thing you might want to notice is that, hey, look, this thing's not moving. So I've got this sitting on a crappy folding table. Whoa, sorry about that. A crappy folding table with some really cool looking Renaissance style fabric I picked. I don't want it to be too girly looking, but I want it to look regal. And this is just to cover up the fact underneath here is like a few layers of packing blankets and things like that, because those temporary tables you can get, they're like this terrible gray, slippery, and I just want to be able to set this up and move it. In fact, right now I'm not even at my house. I'm somewhere else. So this here, the grid, I bought a really cheap 1 meter metal rule stick and using permanent marker, and I bought this dry erase piece of board here. It's glued on the back with like super glue or something, so it won't fall off the foam core. So I lift the foam core up, the whole thing comes with it, right? And then I just basically put little dots. You can actually see the little dots I did. Look at these little dots here. This is when I first did it. So you got dot, 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 dot. So I just measured 1 inch because I wanted a 1 inch grid that way. And I did it up at the top as well. Let's turn this around so you can see the top. So this gave me kind of like an XY coordinate system. Sounds so technical, doesn't it? But you'd be surprised. In the old days, that's how you do stuff. So we have the little dots here, so I could lay out the dots, and then I could just lay down the ruler. In this case, it was a long ruler like this, right? And I just take my Sharpie and I went, whoosh, just drew a line. Then I just went over another one, drew a line. Now, if you do it, always draw the line away from the ink. So as you drag your ruler like this, you're going to move away from the wet ink. If you go this way, you might smear it. Now, the only thing about this you have to be careful is don't draw on this with your dry erase markers. So let's show you an example what that looks like if you mess up. I did it one time on one of the shows. I was like, oh crap, but it doesn't really matter because I can replace this entire setup here for like $6. I think this piece of foam core cost me $3. I think this is shower board really. This dry erase unattached basic 18 by 24 dry erase board probably cost me $7 at like Michael's or something. Really cheap junk because it's mostly an experiment. It could have flopped. See this area here? This area where I had to kind of go back and clean up. The board got ruined because I drew on top of dry erase marker. If you ever accidentally write on a dry erase marker board, you can use a dry erase marker itself as an acid to remove it. This is too bright. Let's turn this light off so it's not so bright, and refocus this a little bit for you. Come on now, focus. I don't like autofocus. There we go. So as you can see right here, I put dry erase marker here and I wiped it off and I wiped away my line, my permanent marker. I was like, oh crap, that's not going to work. So be careful with that. It's not that big of a deal. So that's the glass part. Then this is the board part. Now, if you're the kind of person who's like, oh man, I just love these digital battle maps, this person's Patreon page, hey, go for it. I mean, I'm doing this as a super low chump budget method. And I'm gradually putting more and more money into it, but I'm keeping it cheap. Now let's talk next about the actual tokens. So if you don't have a single miniature, it is super duper cheap to make your own tokens. And I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here. It's not, you have like an upfront cost of like $30, and then after that it's just so absurdly cheap. It's just ridiculous. You'll be like, oh my god, I should have done this a long time ago. So this plastic case I got at, I don't know, I think it was at Michael's, cost $2. Okay? So in the first few episodes, this was our party. These 7 characters here was our player characters. And I'm going to let you see them up close and let you see what they look like. So let's just take, let's put Mercedes and Felcherna and Elefanisi and Vernjar. We'll put them all on our hand here. And let's just refocus that so you can see that in detail. So we're going to bring this in like, let's bring it about right here. Right about there. There you go. So that's pretty good. So what these are, okay, what these are, let's turn this way a little bit. These are pictures I took with my phone, okay, of my characters in Black Desert Online. You can use any picture you want, and I'm going to show you how to do it with the monsters as well. You may recognize like that Winter Wolf in the lower right hand corner. That's from one of the monster manuals or Pathfinder rule book. That's this down here. So what we're doing here is we have a gloss printed color picture on a fender washer with a felt back, and we did it all ourselves, handmade. Okay, so what that allows you to do is to scale. Notice how this thing goes down to they're 1 inch diameter, so this is 1 inch diameter. This is the same size as a mini base. All right, this is her mini base if you had a mini for her, which is the mini we're using for her. In fact, I have a mini base also I made for her. Let's just drop these down. I've been slowly transferring over to using minis, and I've been using these mini bases because I'm still on. Now my base, I'm not a great miniature painter. This painting job is crap. It's too glossy, it looks stupid, whatever. I'll get better with time. Right now I'm trying to do gameplay. So this is the basic WizKids bent staff type of plastic resin, whatever the devil is, pre-prime mini. Now I notice I've got the base. Let's get this real close here so you can see. I'm going to turn it like this. There you go. So you've got, we'll use a pen to point. So you've got the miniature, then you got the base, and this plastic WizKid thing. Underneath that is a fender washer. That's a silver ring, which I could have painted, but I didn't. And this is the felt back. All this is put on here by hand, and it's not like I'm some kind of crazy craftsman from Switzerland. So that's how we do those. And I'm going to show you how to make those yourself. Now for monsters, since I knew I was running the G1 through through D3, which is a classic dungeon. Oh my goodness, I have time. I'll run everything in the game for first edition. So the bad guys are bigger. So giants, I'm using 1.5 inch. Now one thing very interesting is if you buy one of these new super mega badass minis, this guy's actually got, he's huge, but technically, if you take him on his side, right, he's about 15 feet tall to the top of his head. Now he's hunched over and stuff, right? So he's like 15, 16 feet tall, but with his legs spread and everything, I mean, look at the growth of that. His legs are hitting basically almost to 10 foot apart mark. That's pretty big. But for representing him in combat means I use an 1.5 inch token. And so the reason why I decided to go with 1.5 inches instead of a really big token is that means that if a big giant tried to fit, here's a frost giant here, if a frost giant tried to run down a corridor and fit through an opening, he would need to be able, he could just turn on the side. So this gives you kind of like the minimum width. So 2 guys could pass by each other like this. So say you had a situation where here was Vernjar, he's attacking this one hill giant, attacking him, and then we had a frost giant attacking from over here, and we had another hill giant in the back. We can't get to him, right? So this guy can't get to him. And what if Elefanisi was on the scene and she's attacking this guy from behind? She can attack these two. But if they were different sized creatures, like, I don't know, let's throw some orcs up here. We got some orcs, right? So these little orcs I made. Now, if he's attacking, here's an orc, an orc, an orc, and an orc. You could technically have him completely surrounded by orcs, right? Here's an orc, say Elefanisi. If they are fighting side by side, then you'd have an orc here. You could have another troglodyte or whatever right here. Let's just shine this down a little better so you can see it. So this gives you a sense tactically the positioning of everyone. You don't have these, you can keep things on the grid and everyone will face it the way they want to face them. So that worked out really well. So when I first made these, I looked up on YouTube. Someone said, how do you make tokens? And this one fellow said, oh, you can use fender washers, but he didn't do the felt thing. I was like, well, if I do fender washers, if I drop one like that, it would just shatter the glass because it's not tempered glass. So that's why I decided, well, how am I going to make this work? So let's go into detail about the fun crafting part of this stuff. Now, it's not no black magic craft. That guy's a complete amazing badass. But so here's all the monsters we made for the first season and season 2. So all the Glacial Rift of Frost Giant Jarl is in here, and all the Steadying the Hill Giant Chief. So let's get those out of the way just for a second. In fact, we'll just stick that over here. Now you could go out and do this, right? You could go out and say, you know what, I'm not going to make these things. I'm going to spend money. And there's nothing wrong with that. And believe me, if I could do this all day long, $5 a pop for 2 bugbears, and they're really cool, really well detailed, and he brings out the kid in all of us. I mean, come on, check it out, man. That looks awesome. Let's move this over here a little bit. These guys look freaking cool. Oh, that's what I love about this stuff. Look at that. Oh my God, I gotta buy it. $4.99. Everywhere I've been, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, these things cost about the same. Okay, in the Reaper miniatures about the same. So you could do that, but I needed like 40. I needed like 29 hill giants and 17 winter wolves. If I were to buy 17 winter wolves, how much would I spend? Say you got 2 winter wolves. I haven't found any yet. Say you had 2 winter wolves, right? Let's see. I needed 20 winter wolves, and it cost. Let's just say it was $4.99 for a box. So that would be $49 just to get the winter wolves in an encounter that the players may not even go to. So I was like, well, you know, I need to have control over what I make and what's going to be in the game. So how do I do that? Well, I got plenty of pictures. I got plenty of cool books. I can make my own. I make my own. So here's what we do. And then I had to research, well, how am I going to do that? So the first thing I did, I said, well, you know what? Let me just go through the dungeon itself and get my phone out and take pictures of the cool art in these great books that really can get me excited about looking at them. I mean, who doesn't love all the fantastic pictures in these dungeon, you know, bestiary guides from Pathfinder or the Monster Manual 1, 2, or a Fiend Folio. And I wanted them to be in color too. So when I first got started, I was like, oh, you know what, we need a great Yeti picture. So, you know, here's a picture of a Yeti from one of these books. I just took it with my phone, my little Samsung S8. Or here's a picture from a frog. No one ever went to the frog room in there, but what you never know. Or let's see what else we got in here. Needed some frost giants. You know, I took lots of pictures of some of the frost giants. And this is right out of a book. Let me get this light out of the way. So this is right out of the book here. So we're not selling this stuff. This is for my own personal use. It's no different than me just pulling up a character sheet. So you can tell which books these are from too. I like this one. So this one I really liked it a lot. So I decided to use that one. So I first took a bunch of pictures of my phone. Plugged my phone into my PC. And then I uploaded them. So I went to the 5th edition, the 4th edition. This is what, 3.5, Pathfinder. I'm like, oh man, I need a really great frost giant. Where's a good one? Here's a hill giant. This guy's pretty cool. Here's a storm giant. So you know, this is the fun part. But I didn't really like the frost giant too much in Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder's books; they're beautiful. So you find the pictures you want. 5th edition's got some very, very beautiful art. Find the pictures you want. Blue dragon, whatever. Take pictures of them. Save them on your phone. Use a good quality phone. Good quality photos. Right? So then what do? Well, before you get too wigged out, let's open up another screen for you. I'm going to reduce the size of this for a time. Just pop up this player panel. So here's a bunch of pictures I took, right? So here's a bunch of pictures, and I, you know, you can look through all these, and these are what they, this is what they look like when I first took them. They're all turned on their sides, and they're kind of goofy. And I'm just going to hide this little drawing thing out for the time being, get this out of the way, so you can see better. So you got, you know, hill giant and storm giant, stone giant, and these are the pictures I took with my phone. Some of them are in the book. Books are curved. I'm not a great photographer. Fire giants upside down. So I took all these pictures, right? So from there, I was like, well, what are you going to do with this? How's this going to work? Well, here's what you do. Now, I'm going to show you the mega retro way to do this. Let me just slide this chair over here. So this is a copy of Paint Shop Pro 4. Okay, I've had this sitting around on this PC forever. You could use Photoshop. It's extremely expensive. There's a lot higher version of Paint Shop Pro. You don't need all that. You don't need all that stuff at all. what you need is something along the lines of this better than Microsoft Paint. Okay, Microsoft Paint isn't going to cut it for you. You need something that's a decent graphical program. I recommend grabbing PaintShop Pro. You can use a 30-day trial on it if you want to. It doesn't matter to me. Let's see if we can find our picture here again, because I closed that down by accident. So let's see here. Pull up my source pictures. Here we go. All right, great. So here's our source pictures. So you can open that program up. In this situation, just put it on edit mode and get your drag a picture in there. So let's just start off with I don't know, what's really cool. How about this? Let's take this ugly orc here. So take this orc and just drag him in. So that's what it looks like by default. You take your photo, it's put in there. One of the first things you would do is go to image or rotate it. Most programs let you do this. So you rotate them left, so you turn the right way. You can even tell that like the page is bent when I took the photo. Like, because in my mind I'm thinking I just need a circle. In my mind I'm thinking, let me just give you a quick little highlight here. In my mind I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm going to turn these things into circles. So not a triangle. Let's find a circle here. Here we go. I'm like, these are going to be tokens, right? So this it'd be about, maybe his little picture would be about this big. So let's go back to our webcam real quick and let you see a orcs. So I knew, I was like, I'm going to have to somehow get these guys to a 1-inch scale. How am I going to do that? Here he is right here. Let me pop the webcam back up so you can see that. Okay. So we're going to close this panel real quick. So here he is, right? So here's the orc we were just talking about. Let's get this up to, let's get this focus for you. So these guys, they have red on the back. I use red for the bad guys. I use blue and navy blue for the good guys. So how are we going to get this guy at a 1-inch size? So this was really tricky. Something, and I basically used PowerPoint. So let's go back to this view here. So he took this, and I said to myself, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? So what I want to do is create like a mask layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this basic picture, which has nothing done to it whatsoever. In fact, we'll just close it down again. We'll close this down. Let's just drag it in from scratch, just like it came right off the phone. Okay, where was the orc at? Here he is. Let's just use this dude here. Here's a raw photo from the phone turned at an angle. So we want to go up here to layer at the top here and go promote background layer. And what that's going to do, you can see over here on this side over here, is going to add another layer. This is going to allow you to mask out the part of the picture that's important to you. Usually I rotate it first. So here's the picture of the guy in the background running around, whatever. Now from the next thing you want to do is you ultimately want to end up with something that kind of looks like that. Like this is the actual little web article from Corel, creating circular image in PaintShop Pro 5, whatever. So we're just going to walk through that real quick. So the first thing we do is we promoted that to a background layer. That means over here there's a background layer. You don't see the additional layer yet, but it's still really there. Then you want to use this ellipse tool, okay? So the ellipse tool is this one right down here above the letter T, okay? I've got it highlighted. Here's T, and here's some of the other buttons. Let's go to ellipse tool. You need the drop-down menu and make that set to ellipse, but then up here, up in this area, make sure this is set to circle, okay? So this is a draw an ellipse, which would be like that, which we don't want to do. What you want to do is a circle. So what we're going to, another thing we need to do is notice here on the right-hand side where the palette is by default, sometimes this is going to be masked. You want this to be solid and make sure it's the same color. So let's say, for example, this is the wrong color. Say it was red, okay, just some random red color. What you want them both to be is whatever the same color. It doesn't really matter about the color, because the color is not part of the masking technique. What I would do is I'd click on this and I would just change it all to the same color. Just use color 000, all right? So there's that. So you got this. We're going to draw an ellipse on this picture, which is going to be what we're masking out. And we've got this promoted to a layer in the background. And all we need to do, we got this selected to circle. So we can do this a few times till we like it. I'm like, it looks like that's pretty good. Like if you don't like it, just Control Z, go back. Because I'm trying not to get this white part. See how this white part here where I took the photograph? I could go back and take the photograph again, but I decided not to. So this is actually pulling from the left corner, like this. So I said, well, you know what? We'll try to make this tangent with the top about like this. More of his goofy picture. So there's that. So from there, now we've got him covered up with an opaque circle. And one thing you also want to make sure is the anti-aliasing thing is disable or uncheck the anti-aliasing checkbox. You don't really need to do that. You don't really have to do that. So once you get your, you can manipulate this and move it around and change it. I usually just keep redoing it until I get it perfectly. Now the next thing I want to do is go up to this menu here called Selection, okay, and From Vector Object. That's what this has been considered now. So you say Selection from Vector Object, and notice how down here it's added this mask. See, this is a mask. It's just the black dot, and here's the actual original piece of artwork. Okay. Now we're going to go over here to Image, and we go to Crop to Selection. So basically, what it's saying is like crop the photograph, except where the black stuff is. Say Crop to Selection. So it just looks like this. Like, wait, what happened to my picture? It's actually underneath it. It's this down here. So what it's done is it's cropped this. Now you can go over to this vector and just delete it. So this is completely gone, and here's what it looks like. So this means that you now have a perfectly circular, but it's not the right size, a perfectly circular picture from whatever you took. Now if you want to do other cool things, you can say, okay, well, let's make that more vibrant. Vibrancy is a fun thing to edit if you wanted to. You usually do that on the source picture. I'll show you how to do that after I finish this. So you can just go to layers and then merge if you wanted to, and that'll merge it down. You could also go to this tool here and fill these buckets in with black. I wouldn't fill them up with white. So now we get this all compressed down. There's no layers on or anything like that. And we can see pretty clearly we have a big round arc and a big black ground. That's going to work out perfectly. So let's just save that. Let's save that over here. We'll just put it in its archive. We're just going to call this work. Okay. Now, so once you've done that, now another thing you could have done, let's do this real quick. Let's just open up another source picture. Let's just take this crazy female fire giant thing. All right. So we're going to take the image, we're going to rotate it the right way, so she's right side up. This is a fantastic photo, but you can see I've took the photograph so closely, the grain on it's kind of there. So you can just take this and go to Adjustment, and go to Hue and Saturation and Vibrancy, and you can tone down how colorful it is and remove a lot of the color out of it. There's all kinds of wonderful photo editing tutorials on the web. I'm not going to get into it. I found that when I did this, it was really good to boost up the color, because I know that I'm ultimately going to make little buttons out of them. So we do that. You make a lot of buttons, right? We don't need this program, but what you want to do, you're going to end up making a PowerPoint presentation that looks like this. So you're going to have this multiple page PowerPoint with as many copies of the monsters you need. So I knew how these are cave bears here. These are all individual pictures I brought in. These are all the bugbears. Here's some of the giants that we're looking at. In fact, here's the little fire giant that we were doing before. And this is all from the setting of the Hill Giant Chief. So here's the orcs. Remember this orc here? This is him here. So let's start off one from scratch. So you go to File, New, go to Blank Presentation. It's going to look like this. Every time you open PowerPoint, it'll look like this. The first thing you want to do is get rid of this junk. Just click on the borders, not the word. It'll make you want to type something. You don't want to do that. Just click on this. You'll know if you click that right because it allows you to move it around. So click on it, delete it. You don't want to add a subtitle, delete it. Now the first thing we need to do next is let's go to the slide size, which is the upper right hand corner up here, okay? Go to the slide size and change it to be the same slide that you're actually going to print. And what you're going to do is you're going to take these things down to FedEx office or something, all right, and you're going to print these. So we're going to make this 8.5 by 11. So just going to go ahead and say this is 11. Take this to 8.5 and just say OK. And just leave it maximized, that's fine. So now we now have an 8.5 by 11. It doesn't look like 8.5 by 11. That's the thing, it's very tricky, but it actually is. So let's take a look at the board again. So I lay these out on the paper. This is glossy cardstock, super cheap. It costs like $1 or something to print one. In fact, we get it pretty close here, let you see the detail of this. It's too close, it's too blurry. There we go. There we go. So I just manually place these on a grid to make sure they work. And you can see some of these ones I did before. Some of these ones I did before, or they're punched out. I used some of these and some of these I didn't. I have all kinds of extras. I just saved them in this stupid folder. Whatever you do, don't do it like this because they fall out of the folder all the time, which is really bad. So now how do we do that? Well, gosh, we need it to be to scale too. Remember we talked about these things being built on a fender washer? Okay. So how do you get the scale part down? Here's how I did it. And this is where it gets tricky, because I learned something doing this. I was like, what the devil? I've been doing game development for 25 years. I've never seen a program do it that way before. So it's not like you're modeling something in Maya. we're going to go back to our PowerPoint plate. Okay, so we got the size right. We're going to go to View, upper right corner View, and right through here underneath the word Animation, we're going to click on the ruler, which is going to give you a ruler across the top, and Grid Lines, which is going to give you these 1-inch grid lines, yay, and then Guides. The guides can tell you where the center point is. So what it's going to do is, imagine this is the XY axis from your damn algebra class in middle school, and so this is 0, and this is 0. It doesn't have to get complicated. We're not doing anything in 3D, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 inches on this side of it, and 5.5 inches on that side of it. So it's 5.5 inches this side, and 5.5 inches that hot side, which is 11, right? And how many sides on this? 4 1/4. So 4 1/4. It doesn't look like it. If you take a piece of paper and hold a piece of paper up to your screen, it's not going to be the same size. Even if you go to zoom and say, hey, you know what? Make this 100%. Even if you set it to 100%, or you change the size of it or whatever, it won't look right. It'll be funny size no matter what. So make it 100%. You can work on this full screen if you want. So then what you can do is start dragging in all the buttons you made, wherever you saved them somewhere, and start putting them in these grids and start offsetting them. So let's do it this way. So what we do is I brought in these things. Let's go back to the org page. Let's put the grid back on. Okay, great. So do we have this, so we take these guys and I just try to paste them. You can see the little red guidelines. Just try to get them in here like that and get a page relatively full with these things, right? So I have this print job I took down on a USB drive to FedEx office and spend $7 or $12 or something printing these things, and did it in a hurry because I know that the little tokens are not going to be all that. You try to keep them, you know, as neat as you want to, and then once you've done that, you end up with those tokens, those things I showed you. Now here's the next part. So let's say you picked all your monsters, you got all your photos, or you have an awesome artist that draws, or you're a brilliant artist and you've drawn it. Maybe even did it like I did, and you went to FedEx office. You're like, oh, I'm going to print my own cool character sheets. You may see a lot of those in our game. We use them as a PDF format as well. So here's an example of some of these things printed up. These ones I didn't use because ultimately I saw the art and I was like, ooh, what's up with that? This guy has like a huge token on his head. Like these ones, it didn't look out too cool. I didn't think the contrast on these were very good. And this one here was kind of weird. I didn't really like it that much, so I didn't use that one because it wasn't very expensive to do. But you're able to make nice, beautiful, thick, shiny gloss cardstock. See that? Really strong stuff, because we're going to be doing glue on this on the back with Elmer's glue, and we don't want the glue to make it warp and bubble like a crappy piece of watercolor paper. So, example, here's all the beautiful character sheets we made. We made these digitally in PowerPoint using the pictures and cropping and things like that, and put the old classic hit points, all that kind of business on there. So you've made a bunch of those. You've got this sheet now with all these bad boys on it that look like this, and you say to yourself, okay, well, how am I going to get these guys on tokens, and what the devil is a fender washer? What is a fender washer? Does it have anything to do with electric guitar? I don't know. Let's just use these. These guys show up better on camera. So you go back to your Home Depot and your Office, not Office Depot, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and you start looking around at the washer aisle, and you'll soon find buried away, there'll be so many washers, you'll be like, oh my God, where is this crap? This millimeter this and millimeter that. Ultimately, you're going to find something that looks like this. And they're going to be in a box because no one uses them, except people who work on Studebakers or something. So you're going to find this box, and they're going to look like this and make this, let's get this nice and focused for you. Fender washers. So what does that say? Steel, 1/4 inch, 100 pieces, made in China. That's ironic. A 1/4 inch is the thickness of the washer. The 1 inch is the diameter. So it's kind of confusing. And it's in multiple languages. Isn't that great? So, you know, this Hillman company makes them. I think this costs like $2. Or at most maybe $7. So that's the 1 inchers. And here's the, this is me sticking something else on top of something else. Here's the one for the big boys. These are 3/8 inch, so they're thicker by 1.5 inches. So the 3/8 of an inch is telling you how thick it is, and the 1.5 inch is the diameter, not the radius. Okay, you don't double it up. So you go buy these, you get a box of these things, and you're like, okay, great, I got these cool fender washers. Now what am I going to do? Well, here's what they look like. Let's pull up a couple of these real quick. So these things are, like, what could you possibly do with these besides trick an arcade machine from the 60s? So these are stainless steel. They got a nice finish on the back face. It's been stamped. So the front face is kind of polished and clean. It's got some UDG logo in there. Who knows what that's for? Probably some manufacturer name. Got a hole in the middle, so you know it's a washer. You got to put a bolt through it. So that's what they look like. Now you're like, okay, how do I get this onto this? So let's do it this way. The first thing you need to do, in fact, let's do it with the little monster guy. Let's do one of these right here. Let me just refocus this. Sorry, I'm doing this manually. Let's get a little guy up here. Let me grab a little one. What do we got here? Anything will work. Anything will work. How about one of these cave bear boys? How about some horses? There's a horse. Those come in handful of wild horses. You remember one of the episodes where Felcherno summoned Animal Summoning 1 and summoned a stampede of like Mongolian tiger nomad horses. So we got the right diameter washer. We got the cool to scale gloss printed. How do we get these on here? You can see it even lines up perfectly. You need a hole punch. So you go to Michael's or Joanne Fabrics or whatever you want to call it, or any other place, Hobby Town or whatever, and find hole punches. This one here is super inexpensive. Let me give you a good view. This is like by Fisker's, I think. So these, you go in these aisles for all these crafting materials are, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's like, I don't want stars and Halloween heads and smiley clowns. I just want something that's going to do something for my D&D game, and no one that works there is going to know what you want to do with it. They're going to have no idea what you're trying to do. This is something that anyone could use, and what it will do is it'll punch one specific diameter. This is the 1-inch one. So what happens is you close this bottom part comes up and then punches it, and the paper slips in this little slit here. So let's just try one real quick, all right? Real simple. Take a horse. This slides through here like this. Notice that you can only go so far. Okay, you can't go the full depth. If you try to do the one in the middle, you can't reach it. So you can see I've taken a pair of scissors and I've cut away lines. So when I'm doing my manufacturing, I'm making these things and hanging out and listening to ZZ Top and stuff, I can just jam in here and get in here real quickly. And I want to kind of visually line this up a little bit. Let me let you see what that looks like. You can actually get ready to crimp it and hold it. And you can see where it's lined up. You can hold it and turn it at different angles. Is that lined up pretty good? That's pretty good. And just click it together. There you go. So we just made ourselves a cave bear. But right now, it's just this thin little piece of cardstock, piece of paper. It's not a token yet. We've got a lot more to do to make it cooler. So that was simple enough, right? Now we've got the cardstock piece. So we want to glue this to here, but we don't want to do it just yet. What you want to do next is, especially if you're at Joanne Fabrics or Michael's, is go look for felt. Now this is really, I think, really what makes this stuff different in the show than other people's stuff. This piece of felt costs 78 cents, okay? And if you start thinking about lining up how many enemies you can put on one page, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, 6, 12, 18, 24, 32, whatever. I mean, you could probably get 50 enemies on one 78 cent piece of felt. Here's what it looks like. Let's let you see this a little closer. I'm not gonna put links in the description. Sorry, dude. I'm not that. You gotta watch the video if you want to figure it out. There you go. 9 by 12 piece of felt, right? Rouge. Totally simple. Now, one thing about this felt that's kind of interesting is that one side works good and one side does not. So actually, we're going to try to zoom this in a little closer again. Let's hold this up to the camera one more time, and I'm going to turn the light a little bit. One side doesn't like to take glue. One side does take glue. And that's important because we're going to use, I don't use super glue, I use Elmer's glue in these bad boys. So one side is very porous like this. The other side's a little bit more smooth. And it's smooth so it can be stacked. Because when you buy this stuff, they're going to be sitting in stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. So you don't want to, you want to use this front face. So then you just take a bunch of the washers and get a bunch of Elmer's glue, which obviously looks like this, right? Dab some Elmer's glue on the side, get a Q-tip, smudge it on here, put it on here, press it down real hard, don't get glue all over yourself, let it sit for a few minutes, put a book on top of it later, do a whole bunch at once. So here's a strip of a bunch of them we did earlier, right? So let's do that with our cave bear. So we're going to do this really simply. It doesn't have to be a dramatic exercise. We're going to use this little piece of paper here. I'm going to take some Elmer's glue. pop this out. That's right, come at the bottom for me. This is the Elmer glue bottle that was being problematic. Okay, we do it on this side. Take some of the glue like this, and you can cut this away with a pair of scissors. So you want to get it down to just one of these. In fact, I got a better pair of scissors here. There's some nice ones. These work really, really well. So just cut this to be closer so you can work with it. Get some glue. Put the glue on the back of this if you want to, on your little bear or whatever you got. Just use a Q-tip, works fine. It's because it's cardstock, it won't bubble through. Press down. Okay. Now you're trying to get glue all over the face of it if you can. Press down, and you can let this dry. Give it like 20 minutes, okay? Give this thing 20 minutes to dry. You'll see sometimes that like glue wants to smush out the side. That's okay because you can clean that up later. All right, so say you've gotten that done. It's done and it's dried. Then you want to trim it. So just take the scissors and just trim it. Just freehand trim it. Even though they're straight lines, there's no special tool for trimming this. Just trim it off as best you can. And you'll notice that when I made these things before, they're not perfect, but they work. Would you rather have nothing? You want something that works. So that's basically it right there. There you go. That's done. So that's how you make those things. Now, in summary, the things I learned along the way that were a pain is that when you start making a lot of those things, you're going to get glue all over the place. So give yourself something that you can wipe your fingers off with pretty frequently. You can also ruin your marker board frequently. I found that getting something to store them in like this was really beneficial, so I can keep track of them and which ones go where. I found that having the red backs worked really, really good for enemies. So here's an enemy and the enemy's dead, I can just turn it over. And that means that because there's a felt back like this, I don't have to worry about them breaking the glass or anything. The only thing that's going to break the glass is going to be me. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now for the 1.5 one, I use a different hole punch for that one. I had to get a different manufacturer. It's this one here. I don't know who is this, but you be sure to look for these things carefully when you're in like a crafting store, because there are so many goofy hole punches. So let's get a little better view of this. There we go. This one here is you can see it's 1 inch in diameter, 1.5 inches. You have to kind of look around. Where does it tell you it's 1.5 inches? Oh, there it is, 1.5 inches on the bottom. It'll be in a package sitting at you, looking at you like this. You're like, what the devil is that? Look at this thing. This could be a picture of a star or a clown or a Halloween pumpkin or whatever. This is the shape of the punch that's going to come out. Then when you buy it and open it up, you're like, oh, what happens here? What do? You pull this thing here down, and this opens up. So now it opens up, and once it's opened up, you can then put something that you want to put punch that's 1.5 inches diameter, like this hill giant here. In fact, let's just do one of these hill giants real quick for you. You only need one. Just do them one at a time. Don't cut your fingers off. You're going to need those later in life. If you do this, if you cut it too close, it's going to be awkward to line it up, and you're going to have problems because you don't have any paper to line it up with. It's going to get stuck. So leave yourself some excess. Try to line it up pretty good. Make sure it looks right. Doesn't matter the orientation. Then just press it down. There you go. So there you go. And then you just put that on, glue that down to a fender washer that you glued a felt back onto. That's what I did. So from there, I found it to be so fun because I no longer had to worry about, you know, I didn't have to have $55,000 in minis. Instead, I could just buy, slowly but surely start building up a miniature library for the characters, the player characters, and start picking up some additional ones over time. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Hope this was helpful to you. I think for someone starting out playing D&D, it's a really fun way to create your own stuff and have as many enemies and monsters as you want, because playing on a battle map or a grid is so much more tactical. I mean, it's really playing homage to a war games. It has the same vibe as kind of Warhammer with line of sight checks and things like that. And it's super duper cheap. And if you have any ideas on how to do it even better, let me know. That's it. Hope you had fun with this episode. I was a little offbeat. The next DM Guide episode I'm going to do is going to talk about some of the rule changes I have on the Patreon page. All right, we're going to leave it at that. And it would leave you this cool picture here. So have a great night. We'll talk to you again real soon.